The Battle of Tarawa. Tarawa is a small coral atoll in the Pacific Ocean. It was barely 2 miles long, but it was heavily fortified by Japanese forces, and the U.S. needed it as a stepping stone toward Japan. The assault lasted 76 hours. American Marines faced concrete bunkers, machine gun nests, and shallow reefs that stopped their landing craft far from shore. Hundreds were killed in the water before they even reached the beach. By the end, the U.S. had taken the island. Nearly all 4,500 Japanese defenders were dead. It was a preview of how brutal Pacific Island warfare would become. November 1943, approximately 6,000 casualties. The Battle of Monte Cassino. Monte Cassino was a hilltop monastery in central Italy. The Germans turned the surrounding hills into one of the most fortified defensive lines of the war, the Gustav Line. Allied forces trying to push north through Italy were completely stopped. It took 4 separate battles over 5 months to break through. The monastery itself was controversially bombed by the Allies in February 1944, on the belief that Germans were using it as an observation post. They weren't, but they moved in after the bombing. The Gustav Line finally fell in May 1944. It remains one of the longest and most costly battles of the Italian campaign. January to May 1944, approximately 55,000 casualties. The Battle of Britain. After France fell in June 1940, Britain stood alone against Nazi Germany. Hitler planned an invasion, but first he needed to destroy the Royal Air Force. For 4 months, the German Luftwaffe and the British RAF fought daily in the skies over England. It was the first major military campaign fought entirely by air forces. The RAF was outnumbered, but had one key advantage: radar. They could detect incoming German aircraft early and respond efficiently. Germany never gained air superiority. Hitler abandoned the invasion plan. Winston Churchill summarized it simply: "Never was so much owed by so many to so few." July to October 1940, approximately 44,000 civilian and military casualties. The Battle of El Alamein. By 1942, German General Erwin Rommel had pushed deep into North Africa. If he broke through at El Alamein in Egypt, the Allies would lose control of the Suez Canal, a critical supply route. British General Bernard Montgomery stopped him. The Second Battle of El Alamein began with one of the largest artillery barrages in history, over 1,000 guns firing simultaneously. Allied forces pushed Rommel's army back across Libya. It was the first major Allied land victory against Germany. Churchill called it the end of the beginning. October to November 1942, approximately 70,000 casualties. The Battle of Midway. 6 months after Pearl Harbor, Japan was still on the offensive. Their plan was to destroy what remained of the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Midway Atoll. If it worked, Japan would control the entire Pacific. It didn't work. U.S. codebreakers had cracked Japanese communications and knew the attack was coming. American dive bombers caught the Japanese fleet mid-operation, aircraft still being refueled on deck. 4 Japanese aircraft carriers were sunk in a single day. Japan never fully recovered its naval power. The momentum in the Pacific shifted permanently to the United States. Midway is considered the turning point of the Pacific War. June 1942, approximately 3,000 casualties, but strategically massive. The Battle of Kursk. After their defeat at Stalingrad, Germany launched one final major offensive on the Eastern Front. Kursk, in western Russia, was the target. The Germans amassed nearly 800,000 troops and thousands of tanks for what they called Operation Citadel. The Soviets knew it was coming. They built 7 layers of defensive lines, stretching hundreds of miles deep, and waited. What followed was the largest tank battle in history. Thousands of armored vehicles collided across the Russian steppe. Germany failed to break through. Soviet forces then launched a massive counteroffensive. From this point on, Germany was on the defensive in the east for the rest of the war. July to August 1943, approximately 300,000 to 800,000 casualties. The Battle of Normandy, D-Day. By 1944, the Allies needed to open a front in Western Europe. On June 6th, D-Day, the largest seaborne invasion in history began. Over 156,000 troops landed on 5 beaches along the Normandy coast of France in a single day. It was meticulously planned and involved an elaborate deception campaign to convince Germany the invasion would happen elsewhere. The fighting on the beaches, especially Omaha, was catastrophic. But by nightfall, the Allies had established a foothold. Over the following weeks, millions of troops poured into France. Paris was liberated in August. D-Day opened the Western Front and put Germany in a war it could no longer win. June to August 1944, approximately 425,000 casualties. The Battle of Stalingrad. This is one of the deadliest battles in human history. Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1941. By 1942, Hitler fixated on capturing Stalingrad, a major industrial city on the Volga River. It also bore Stalin's name, which made it symbolic. What began as an invasion became a siege. Then the Soviets encircled the German Sixth Army. Fighting moved street by street, building by building, room by room. Snipers on both sides became legends. Entire divisions were destroyed and replaced within days. In February 1943, the German Sixth Army surrendered. Over 800,000 Axis soldiers were killed, wounded, or captured. It was the turning point of the entire war in Europe. Germany never launched another major offensive in the East. August 1942 to February 1943, approximately 1.8 to 2 million casualties. These battles were not just military events. Each one involved hundreds of thousands of individual decisions, individual lives, and individual deaths. The scale is difficult to fully comprehend. Together, they determine the shape of the world we live in today. If you want a deeper look at any one of these battles, let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you want more videos like this one.